haven't talked to a college coach in the last 90 days that hasn't said, Reed, we need O linemen. If you can really play offensive line, this era is special for you. Carl, we know you only have a certain number of characters on a tweet, but we got you on the show. So tell us what makes offensive linemen so valuable in what you said, this era of college football.
Number one, you're the foundation of every team. Number two, because of the transfer portal era, guys are not being developed. There used to be schools where offensive linemen could go in red shirt, then they could play on the scout team. And by year three, you had been in the weight room, you had learned to scheme, and you could become a tremendously valuable player. Now, the transfer portal has hurt coaches in terms of the offensive line is one of the positions that you really want to have continuity at, but it's hard to get it. So now it becomes a talent thing. And so you are having to pay top premium dollars to get a good offensive lineman. A Power 4 coach told me last summer that one of his linemen threatened to leave and go to another school, and he had to pay him because it would have cost him double to get a new kid to replace the kid that had just left.
Well, Carl, you know what? At the end of the day, there's a few things. Is looking at it from the front office point of view. A lot of it is there aren't very good college offensive line coaches that are teaching the proper fundamentals of playing offensive line. Two, a lot of college offensive coaches are going to a style of football that's not conducive of teaching a young man that plays the offensive line position step by step of proper hand placement, foot placement, hat placement. So there's years that's missing of this young person's development. And when you finally get this young man developed to where you want him and he plays a year, everyone comes and poach, because we all understand that the hardest thing to get is an offensive line coach that's qualified, but second, an offensive line coach that can develop young offensive linemen, because most of offensive linemen are 6'4", 300-pound guys that need to get physically developed, mentally developed, to play the game of battle within 6 inches from each other.
Okay, so finding an offensive line coach that's qualified is a whole different conversation. So let's stick with the players here. If everybody is looking for those offensive linemen, Smoke, where are they? Who are some impact offensive linemen that you've seen hit the portal during the spring window?
Well, the one that's going to impact this team the most is the guy that's going back to this team, Caden Proctor. He was a freshman that started from game 1 to the end of the season, left and came back, and his position has been there waiting on him. So Caden Proctor is a guy that got developed last year to play the level of football that when he came out of high school, he was going to play. So that guy right there is a number one guy for me in that position.
Carl, who you got?
I'm going to go, my first guy that I really like is Branson Hickman. Branson Hickman played center at SMU. He just committed to the University of Oklahoma. When you turn this guy's tape on, this is clinic film. Smoke just talked about hand placement, hat in the right place. I saw this guy reach a 3 technique on an inside zone run, which is only guys like Kelsey that plays on the Philadelphia Eagles. He has similar traits. Guys that are back blocking on gap schemes, his ability to set the protection. This is a big-time player. He's leaving one great offensive line coach at SMU and going and playing for another one at Oklahoma and Bill Beatonbow. I think that he's a tremendous, tremendous offensive lineman, and I can't see a center outplaying him in college football this season.
Oh, some high praise. Unfortunately for the teams that are still looking for an offensive lineman, only one player mentioned, Jason Zandamela, is technically available in the portal. And only a few minutes ago, our friend Chris Hummer, alongside 2 of the members of Swamp 247, Blake Alderman and Jacob Redner, all putting in crystal balls for him to land at Florida. This is before he plans to actually visit the Gators this weekend. So far, so good for them to add a piece on their front. Let's look at some teams just overall who have made a lot of noise so far in the portal. First, we got to start in Colorado. Always really making noise when it comes to the portal. And I think it's safe to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, I mean, the assumption was that maybe last year's historic portal usage was just kind of that initial bump to get Coach Prime the squad that he wanted to start off strong. But it sounds like based on the large numbers in and out this year too, this is just kind of how it's going to be done here. So from your point of view, Carl, what's happening in Boulder this cycle?
Well, I think that 70% of those guys have been known that they weren't going to be back on the team probably since November, December. And just the
Mm.
way that it happened, April 15th was the first day that many of them could get in the portal. You're going to have, no matter where you go, you're going to have roster turnover. And he had some roster turnover. But one of the reasons that we talk about it all the time is because he's the only coach that gives unprecedented access to everything that's going on his team through Well Off Media, through the Amazon show. So I think the roster is shaping up kind of the way that he wants it to from the standpoint of the guys they've added and some of the guys that have moved on.
Well, Carl, this goes back to what I said at the beginning. The missing piece of this whole thing is proper research of the players that you are bringing into your building. At no means should you be able, or you should want to bring a player in for a few months and get him back out. So the thing that you have to do, that I would believe if I'm at Colorado, what I would do is and look into what I'm doing in terms of an organization. Are we getting the proper players in place to play? Are we going through all the fine details of the player, the person, and is he a good fit for what we have going on? Because if it's consistently a roster turnover every single year, you're not going to build the continuity and the culture that you want in your team. And I understand what you're saying. He's one of the few that's allowed so much access to his facility, but also you have to look at yourself and say, are we doing the right things? Are we taking the right steps and getting the right people in our building to sustain success over a long period of time?
Well, one of the things, Smoke, when you look at transfer portal recruiting, it's completely different than high school. High school is a very thorough process over a long period of time. Transfer portal is more like speed dating. So when you have to fill a need and you decided to go into the portal, you kind of got to deal with it. Duke has had 7 basketball players, which is over 50% of their team, going to transfer portal, but they won't be scrutinized in the same way because they don't allow that type of access. So you're not really tuned into that unless you're really in the know.
And what I'm saying, Carl, I'm not pointing a finger at one place. I'm pointing the finger at the process of it. And no, it's not speed dating because we all understand that every coach and every program poaches players. So if you have the right people in place and the right personnel department in place, you are collecting information before you bring that player into your building. Instead of poaching and begging and asking that player to come play for you, you should do further research to understand who that player is before you bring him into your building. Again, you have the bag, you have the money, you have the resources to do that. And also, you are the bank. They have to come see you. You don't always have to go follow behind that person, that player, to get them into your building to now eliminate them in 6 to 7 months.
Coaches poach players?
Absolutely. It happens all the time.
We're all shocked to learn that, Smoke. That is brand new information. No, I mean, I think that the cut downs are happening at every program, and it would be naive to say that every player that's leaving Colorado is exactly what was Coach Prime intended. It's not like that at any program across the country. There's tons of coaches being blindsided by some of their prospects that they thought were going to stick with the team headed into the portal. So it's kind of a product of what's happening now. And I think that there's a place that you can look to, and Michigan State is one of those programs too. I mean, a coaching change will generally indicate that heavy portal usage that we see in year one, and that's exactly what's happening. But for Jonathan Smith, he's seen 14 scholarship players, 2 walk-ons at the portal during the spring window. We know that there's the cut down days that we call the exit meetings that are going on, but one of those players is a player that I'm, fairly certain he did not sit down and ask him to leave the program, and that's 4-star edge rusher by Job from the 23 class. He was the highest signee in school history. So, Smoke, I'll start with you on this one. What would you attribute this kind of exodus to in East Lansing?
Failure to understand your purpose in football. I remember recruiting by Joe when I was at Vanderbilt, and he's a raw, athletic kid that needs time on task. And when you are at a place at Michigan State, you had a coach that you came in with, you had a previous relationship with him. Sometimes you get emotionally attached. And like Carl and I have always said, when you're involved in college football, the emotional attachment needs to be removed. You need to understand that this is a business. And for a young man as such that needs development, my advice to him and to him to get to where he needs to get to is understand that you need to sit down, relax, take the proper coaching, and it's going to be different because if you work yourself to the next level, you're going to have different coaches come in. So this is a part of the process of being a professional, of being patient, take your lessons, get bigger, stronger, faster, and adapt to any circumstances that you are put in front of.
Well, it's very normal, guys, for players to leave after coaching changes, especially when you go through spring and you realize that this might not be a personality fit for me. The previous staff, Mel Tucker, defensive coordinator Scotty Hazelton, they have completely different personalities than Joe Rossi, who came in as the D coordinator to Michigan State. So sometimes it's those type of things where things are just going to be done differently. You signed up for one thing, it's changed to another. Also, a large number of those guys are guys that I'm sure have been moved on because they weren't going to get playing time, and you got to free up spots. So you have both situations working at the same time.
Nothing to quite panic about. We've been through a few cycles of this to know that this is fairly regular. I will say our friends at Spartan Tailgate are doing a fantastic job of tracking all of this. They have a whole Google spreadsheet that you can check out every player that's come in and every player that's left, and they have a total 73 of the 85 scholarships are filled right now. So they will definitely be buyers, as we will say, in the market right now, looking to fill out the rest of their roster. Let's finish with this as we wind things down in this portal window. It ends next week. Let's look kind of big picture and evaluate. Obviously, college football is facing some major issues. We're not going to fix them with one quick segment, but let's talk about those immediate fixes. The windows have already shrunk. We've already seen some adjustments each cycle when it comes to the transfer portal. So I'll start with Carl here. What is just a small tweak that maybe would make this process a little bit better in the immediate future?
Well, I think the biggest tweak that needs to come right now is the coaches have to adjust their mentality to understand that this is what it is. The NCAA gave them the system that they wanted because everybody was against rules until the rules affected them. And so behind the scenes, a lot of coaches that voted for a set of rules when the NCAA first started talking about this, they wanted the two-time transfer when those transfers were at their particular schools. So this is the system that you have. The NCAA gave it to you as you chose to run with it. So you have to adjust. You have to stop complaining. You have to accept things for the way that they are, and you have to move forward with it. And the people who can master this era of transfer portal and NIL are the people that are going to own college football in the future.
Well, Carl, you know what? The rule that I would like to implement is just allow legal tampering. Give a week window of where you can go in and investigate the prospects that are potentially getting in the portal. Because we all know that once you put your name in, compliance has to clear you for any other institution to contact you. Allow that tampering process to happen, give them a week, so you now can go through, do your proper research so we don't see the bounce backs and the two times transfers if you give the team the proper time to take care of their own business and find out who the player is.
Ooh, I like both of those suggestions. Legal tampering, we see that in the NFL, and I like Carl. Quit making new rules and just accept the rules as they are. Just a little mindset shift. I love it. We always get the real talk from Carl here.